beloved listeners. Thanks again for tuning into Sin's Workshop. I hope you are all having a wonderful day. So, today we're going to be talking about The Whispering Dark. This is a book I really wanted to love, but I didn't. There's just a lot going on, and it really just lacks cohesion. So I think my biggest issue with this book is the lack of cohesion that goes with the blending of genres. It just didn't mesh well together at all. You've got horror, you've got supernatural, you've got paranormal, you've got sci-fi, you've got some romance in there. And usually, I don't mind really big genre blends. Nowadays, when you read literature, there's a blend of everything in everything. And it's so smooth, I don't even think we notice it half of the time or at all. But I noticed it very heavily here, and I think that that's part of the problem. I'm reading the book, and I can't decide what I want it to be. Do I want it to be horror? Do I want it to be sci-fi? Do I want it to be supernatural? Do I want it to be dark academia? What is the author's intent with this book? And I really couldn't just pin it down at all. It follows Delaney, who she gets accepted to this college that deals with paranormal, supernatural. It's like an urban fantasy, I guess you could say. And their biggest shtick is that they can open portals to parallel universes. Well, the multiverse. So I'm like, okay, that's great, interesting. Her talent is she can speak to the dead, but she doesn't really know that she can speak to the dead. That's another problem I had with the story. It's called The Whispering Dark. You have a main character who can talk to the dead, and that's not really fleshed out at all throughout the story. There are scenes here and there where she hears something like a whisper or someone talking, and then she turns and there's no one there. That's about the most we get of her using her powers until the very end, when she has to deal with like a demon-like entity. Colton can go between universes. That's his thing. And when he does, he tells Delaney, in the space between universes, that's where the dead lie, that's where the demons live. And it just doesn't flow. It lacks cohesion, it lacks fluidity. It's just very jarring when we go from one genre to another. It doesn't blend well together, unfortunately. Then there's also the inconsistencies with the characterization. Sometimes it was really hard for me to pinpoint who is talking in these scenes, because the author establishes characters in one way, but in different scenes. A perfect example is Colton. He seems very standoffish, very, kind of like a prick in one scene, and then in another scene when he's talking to someone else, he's like just playing his video game. I'm like, wait, that's him playing the video game? That doesn't seem like him at all. And that happens a lot throughout this story, not just with him, but with Delaney too. There's a lot of inconsistencies with these characters. They're built up one way, but then in other scenes they sound like completely different characters. So I had to go back and reread sentences just to figure out who is talking in the dialogue, who's talking in this scene, what's going on. I'm very confused. I don't mind multiple POV stories. In fact, I quite love them because I think that they offer larger scopes when it comes to the storytelling. But, oh my god, this book was so hard for me to follow, and it was very consistent, and I was just not a fan of it at all. It was just such a frustrating book because it has a lot of promise. These are all genres that I love. Horror, supernatural, dark academia, dark fantasy, a splash of romance. I'm not a huge romance person, but I'll take it. It's just inconsistent in its characterizations, and the plot points, the way the story progresses, it just doesn't mesh well together, because at some points it seems like, oh, this is what the story is going to be. And then the author turns it on its head and it's like, no, we're going to be this. This is the focus of the story. And it was like whiplash. I'm like, I don't understand your intent with this story. I don't understand where you're going with this. Like, I'm very confused. And it was very frustrating for me, along with the inconsistencies with the characterizations. I mean, Colton and Delaney are supposed to have a romance. I didn't feel it at all. It was just very lackluster. I'm just like, this is what's happening between you guys. Okay. It seemed very contradictory. Again, lots of inconsistencies with the characterization. The story was pulling into too many directions. It it fell short. So, unfortunately, this book is going to get 1.5 out of 5 stars. I finished the book. There's that. But I did not like it. It was just poorly written, unfortunately. And I really don't like giving bad reviews because I'm an aspiring author myself, and I know as a writer we pour a lot of ourselves into our books. But it makes me feel bad giving bad reviews. But I can't just not do it. I mean, this was a poorly written book. It was just all over the place for me. So 1.5 out of 5 stars. But my opinion is my own. I recommend to everyone, check it out. Read the first 50 pages. If you can't get through it, then put it down. So once again, 1.5 out of 5 stars. Links on where to purchase the book will be in the description of this podcast. I hope you all continue to support me here by liking the podcast, subscribing to it, and sharing it with all your book loving friends. You can also become a supporter on any of my social media platforms, Buy Me Coffee, Ko-fi, Patreon, or by purchasing one of my handmade candles. Once again, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, happy reading.